Well, hello again. You've all heard about the problems that occurred in Dallas. We want to discuss that very briefly, even though there are preliminary things that are coming in, various facts, and some of them are being contradicted right now as we speak, as more verification of what's going on and what happened is released to the public. But these sorts of things that you saw last night, well, this is the day after the incident, were commonplace in the 1960s and 70s. Commonplace to the extent of it was almost every week. And we in the John Birch Society had a Support Your Local Police program, which we still have today, which supports the police and also wants them to remain independent of the federal government. In other words, we don't want our local police to be nationalized. Now, that is the end result of a lot of this agitation that's going on right now. Now, we don't begin to know the backgrounds of the four individuals that, as of this moment, that were involved in these shootings. But we do know that unless the police have the correct mindset, they're not going to ask the correct questions to find out what really motivated these people. And one of the problems that we had in the beginning of our Support Your Local Police program was a vast amount of ignorance that was out there as to who and what was behind all of the street violence and that sort of thing. Let me just show you one little clue. And this is a copy of the Crusader. Now, you can't see this very well, but it is sort of a knighted, and they called him Afro-American at this point, igniting the cities. In other words, this was a publication designed to get the black community to go out and burn down the cities. Now, it was published in Cuba and imported into the United States. What was going on in the streets behind the Black Panthers and a lot of these other organizations, and one called RAM, the Revolutionary Movement, was all run out of the cadre from Cuba. Many of these people went to Cuba for their training and came back in these revolutionary forces and snipers and burning down the cities and that sort of thing. Now, we have been able to establish, even now, the fact that communists are heavily involved in these street demonstrations and street violence, city after city after city across our country today. Jim Fitzgerald and myself, Jim is a former policeman in Newark, New Jersey, and myself go out and give talks about this to document the fact that these are coordinated events from the Communist Revolutionary Party and that sort of thing. And so if you don't know the right questions to ask these suspects, are you involved in any communist or subversive movements, rather than what motivated you to do this, and they said, well, we're just mad at Whitey, that's insufficient. And that's the kind of thing that they are trying to purvey amongst the viewers of the television programs, even on Fox last night, or early this morning actually, was that this was just in retaliation for something that happened in some other city. Well, why do you go out and kill cops in your city because you're mad at a policeman in another city? That doesn't make sense. There's a lot more going on here, and it's in the reaction on the part of the population. They're trying to get everybody to react, both in the black, Hispanic, and white communities. They're trying to get us to stand still for more police protection in sympathy to what happened to these policemen. What happened to them is terrible. But we don't want to nationalize our police in the process because we need more police protection. Be that as it may. There are a lot of things on the other side of the equation too to stir things up. You had publications like this stirring up the extremists in the white communities, trying to get them to go out and punch black people in the face and that sort of thing. So you had agitators working both sides of the fence in building up racial animosity. And we in the John Birch Society, through our Support Your Local Police committees and another committee that we had, went into these communities and calmed things down and got them to understand that, look, because you're a white man, you're not my enemy, or because you're a black man, you're not my enemy. My enemy is the people that are trying to stir us up and burn our cities down and get us into race war. That is our enemy, and those individuals. And a lot of it is being purveyed on campuses and that sort of thing. This is a communist publication, the Monthly Review. And in here they have an interview with Malcolm X and the colonial war at home. In other words, we are involved in anti-colonialism inside the United States even. It's a communist slogan. And they're trying to whip people up into fighting government and the police and so on and so forth. And in here, in the Malcolm X interview, they advocate that what we really need is a national police force as a step towards a United Nations police force. And this hasn't changed either. And in a presentation that Mr. Fitzgerald and myself give, we point out these various things and how it all comes together. We lay out a series of photographs to show you what's really behind these demonstrations, because you only see the local demonstration in your paper. But when you lay out a whole panorama of these demonstrations that happen across the country, we can show you the similarities and how they're all coordinated. But we've got a real problem this time that we didn't have before. And that is that some of these cities today are actually run by communists. And they proudly proclaim this in their People's World newspaper. Cities like Seattle and New York and Richmond, Virginia, and others, where the top of the police, the mayors and the city council and that sort of thing, are controlled by the communists, and then you got the street communists, and the police are caught in between. And they aren't allowed to do the things they need to do, that they know they have to do, to quell the violence before it even gets started. And we get into that in our presentation and document all of this stuff. But we, even in the 60s and 70s, had reports from the federal government which demonstrated that this violence that was in the streets, and these are from the Congress of the United States, they document that this violence and everything else was coming from communist cadres. They would even pay communists to come onto college campuses to recruit in the classroom. And here is a study that was done on that they would actually pay these communist agitators to come into classes and enlist people out of those classes to get into the streets and everything else, and pay them to do so with honoraria. So a lot of this was going on then, and we know it is going on today. And so if you're interested in learning more about what is really going on in the streets of America today, I urge that you contact the Public Relations Department of the John Birch Society and see if you can't get one of us to come out and give a full presentation to an audience with visuals as to what is going on, how it is coordinated, the direction they want to take us, and how dangerous it is to American liberty. In the meantime, do not fall for this agitation to where you start blaming blacks or blaming whites or blaming Hispanics. These are very small cadres of people, highly trained, to get people into the streets and whip them up. They are the enemy, not your neighbors, not your fellow employees or anything else, just because they belong to a different religion or because their color of their skin is a little different than yours. Don't ever fall for that stuff. Until we get further information, we'll probably post another thing on Monday to kind of bring you up to date as to what's going on and a little insight into the things that I've just been discussing.